MAGA's crumbling. Say it ain't so. The MAGA movement is cracking, and I'm not talking about random nobodies on Twitter. I'm talking the biggest names in the game, like Nick Fuentes, one of the most extreme MAGA figures out there, is telling his followers to vote Democrat. Tucker Carlson just got kicked out of MAGA by Trump himself. Theo Vaughn, Andrew Schultz, two of the biggest podcasters who helped get Trump elected, saying, I voted for none of this. And Joe Rogan, the man who arguably won Trump the election, he's questioning everything. Now, this isn't a crack in the wall. This is the wall crumbling down. Let me break down what's happened. All right, now look, to understand why this is happening all at once, you gotta understand the timeline. Ever since Trump started escalating with Iran and walked us into a war, his own base has started turning. Not the casual voter, y'all. I'm talking about his core, the people who built this movement. And one by one, they're walking away. Let's start with the most recent and insane one, y'all. Nick Fuentes. That guy told his followers to vote Democrat. So, Nick Fuentes, for those of you who don't know, he is a far right commentator, white nationalist. I'm talking, I love the Nazi type. And he was one of the most extreme Trump loyalists in the game. This man was all in. And this week, he told his massive audience, and I'm quoting here, to either skip the 2026 midterms entirely or vote Democrat. Let that sink in. Nick Fuentes, vote Democrat, those words in the same sentence, that wasn't on my bingo card for 2026. That's unthinkable. His whole argument is that Trump has broken every promise. No border wall funding. They're sending money overseas for wars, and now Iran. He said, and I'm not paraphrasing, we need to shut this administration down, which you'll see in this video.
Are still in control. Is this a government of, by, and for the people? Do elections matter? Does the popular will matter in our representative democracy, in our republic? If we vote to repudiate a policy, a foreign interest group, a special interest group, repudiate a particular agenda, and we get that agenda anyway, that war, those people, regardless, what does that say about the political state, the actual true political reality of the United States of America? If anything, it just verifies what Trump said from the very beginning, which is that we are no longer in control. The people are no longer sovereign. And we knew that. That is something that we had always known and we had always suspected. This is confirmation. This is an illegitimate regime. The Constitution, representative democracy, our republic is effectively over. You can vote for a candidate that repudiates the global war on terror, the war in Iraq, regime change, someone that explicitly promises not to bring us into new conflicts. Someone that explicitly campaigns as the peace president, no new wars, and you'll get all of it anyway. We are in a state of distress. This is not a republic anymore. That's over. And the MAGA movement is surely dead, of course. But anyway, I digress.
Now look, I'm not here to endorse Nick Fuentes. The man has said some disgusting, vile things. But when the most extreme member of your base tells people to vote for the other team, that tells you something. The eyes are opening and the battered spouse wants a divorce. Next, we have Tucker Carlson. He gets kicked out of MAGA. Now, Tucker Carlson, this might be the wildest part of the whole story. Tucker was basically the voice of MAGA for years. He has a personal relationship with Trump. His show, his platform has been the megaphone for this movement. But when Trump made the call on Iran, Tucker publicly pushed back hard. He even criticized the Iran war decision on his show. And Trump's response, he didn't like that. But let's check out what Tucker said in his show.
Strategy. And actually, if you look at it backwards and try to assess recent events, even in this country, in American political life over the past several years, certainly over the past 6 or 8 months, you can see that a lot of what was happening here was preparation for where we are right now. In other words, people who wanted war in Iran were softening up the public for it, were manipulating the U.S. government in order to affect it, and were doing their very best to silence anyone who doubted its wisdom. A lot of the things we have seen in the recent past are, and now it's very obvious, they were all designed to get us to where we are now, war with Iran on behalf of Israel. Now, just a caveat at the outset, just because the prime minister of Israel wanted a regime change war with Iran does not mean in any sense that it was a wise idea for Israel. It certainly wasn't a good idea for the United States. No one just really disputes that. But was it a good idea for the country or for the prime minister who advocated for it? No, probably not, actually. Just because we want something doesn't mean it's good for us. Sometimes when we get what we want most, we're destroyed by it. Hope that doesn't happen to Israel, of course, or anybody. But it could. So when you get to the truth of things and you see who's pushing for them, that doesn't mean that person understands his own best interest or his country's own best interest. Often they don't. Often we don't. But it doesn't change the fact that we got here because Israel lobbied for it. And virtually everyone in the U.S. government, certainly in the Pentagon, understood the risks. The risks were obvious from day one. First, if you knock off a government, we have a long history of doing that. It's not that hard. The individual bravery of the U.S. military personnel, the soldiers who do it, is laudable, impressive, amazing sometimes. But that is, we have learned, the easy part. Killing Saddam, okay, amazing. What comes next? Et cetera, et cetera. This is all very, very well known. And it was very well known 48 hours ago that there was no real plan to replace the government we were hoping to topple. At which point, what? Well, now you have a country, Iran, the size of Western Europe, with 92 million people, a country that's, only a little over half Persian, that has its own internal divisions and dynamics and rivalries. You have that country potentially breaking apart. And what does that mean? Well, hard to see that as a good thing for the rest of the world.
And like he said, those are very valid issues that he brought up. And of course, Trump didn't like that. So in his response, Trump says, and this is a direct quote, "Tucker has lost his way. I knew that a long time ago. He's not MAGA. Tucker Carlson is not MAGA," according to Trump. Think about that for a second. And it gets deeper. Laura Loomer and other pro-Israel conservatives were already sounding the alarm about Tucker, because once you start waking up, they think you're crazy, saying he's leaning into conspiracy theories and anti-it's not real rhetoric. So now you've got a war within the right wing about who's real MAGA and who's the traitor. That's not a movement. That's a civil war. And now we have the podcast bros, Theo Vaughn, Andrew Schultz, and Rogan. Now, this is the one that might matter the most long-term, because these aren't politicians. These are pundits. These are the guys who reach millions of young men every single week. Well, let's start with Andrew Schultz. This man literally helped give Trump credibility with young online audiences. He was on the Trump Glaze of the Year train. And now, in his exact words,
I voted for none of this. He's doing the exact opposite of everything I voted for.
Yeah.
I want him to stop the wars. He's funding them. I want him to shrink spending, reduce the budget. He's increasing it. It's like everything that he said he's going to do, except sending immigrants back. And now he's even flip-flopped on that. I believe when Trump Everything.
I voted for none of that. Okay, Schultz. That's not a subtle criticism from Schultz, but that appears to be a public breakup. Then we have Theo Von. Same thing. He had Trump on his podcast, and that interview was huge, a huge moment for the campaign that garnered around 17 million. And now Theo is saying the same thing. Trump, the guy that I voted for, is not the same guy that we see now. Newsflash, it is the same guy. But his feelings have been hurt. And then there's Joe Rogan, the biggest podcaster on the planet, the man whose endorsement arguably tipped the 2024 election. And right now, he's calling the news cycle madness. He's questioned the frozen water boys tactics. He's pushed back on the Iran's escalation. And according to many of his viewers, his questions and pushback on this regime have signaled that he's shifted. Now, I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. When you lose Rogan, Schultz, and Theo Von, you didn't lose supporters. You lost the entire pipeline to the young male red pill voters. And that pipeline is how Trump won. Now, the bigger picture of what this actually means. Well, let's zoom out. What does this really mean? Well, here's what I see. The MAGA coalition was always held together by one thing: loyalty to their leader. Not policy, not ideology, but loyalty. And the moment Trump made a decision that went against what his base wanted, which is no more wars, the whole thing started unraveling rather quickly. You got the far wing with Fuentes saying vote Democrat. You've got the media wing with Tucker getting expelled. You've got the culture ring with the podcast bros pulling away. And regular MAGA voters, well, AOL just reported that disillusioned Trump supporters are vowing to vote Democrat in 2026 because, and I quote, the GOP broke every single promise. This isn't even a left-wing media spin. These are MAGA people in their own words saying they're done. Now, does this mean the Republican Party is finished? Perhaps not. Let's be real. But does it mean the MAGA movement as we knew it is fracturing in a way we've never seen before? Absolutely. And the 2026 midterms are going to be the test. Here's my question to you, though, and I genuinely want to know. Is this the beginning of the end of MAGA? Or is this just noise that blows over in a couple of weeks? Because you know how they do. But because history tells us that movements don't die from the outside, they die from the inside. And right now, the inside is on fire. So drop your take in the comments. I'll read every single one. And if you're new here, this is what we do on a regular. We break down what's happening in a relatable way. And if you like the content, hit that like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you don't miss the next video. Until next time, stay informed, stay dangerous, and I'm out.